Alright, so hey guys, so welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to take a quick look at our newest whip that was released with Fortuna Part 2, the Galvacord. But first things first, if you want to get your hands on this puppy, you can get the blueprint from the market for 20,000 credits. And to build the weapon, you will have to put an additional 20,000 credits, 2 argon crystals, 5 Atmo systems, 3,600 ferrite, and 1,000 circuits. The Galvacord, as I've mentioned already, is a whip that requires you to be at least Mastery Rank 6 to use, and it does 80 damage per hit, which I do believe is the highest out of all the whips. And the damage distribution is 38 as electricity, 22 as slash, 14 as puncture, and only 6 as impact. Now the Galvacord is also the slowest out of all the whips, with an attack speed of 0.75, it also has fairly low crit chance at only 12%, a below average crit multiplier at 1.8 times, but it does come with a very solid 30% status chance. Now this is actually a very interesting set of stats, and it leads to something that I like an awful lot on weapons, and that's choice. You can choose what kind of build you want to use on the Galvacord. And it's all thanks to the high base damage, which allows you to do good damage even with dual stat mods and meme strike, because meme strike is just an easy way to get some damage multiplication. So you can either just go ham on status and kinda accept the fact that it's not going to be as good versus heavily armored Grenier at high levels. You can forget that the weapon has any status whatsoever and just brute force meme strike. Or you can do a bit of both, which is what I did. Now the setup I ended up using on the Galvacord is a 2 Forma build where you add 2 Vs, and it is using Maiming Strike. Now the stance I'm using here is Burning Wasp because it matches the polarity, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be doing slide attacks anyway. Then I'm using Prime Pressure Point for damage, Primed Reach for an insane amount of range on the slide attack, Condition Overload so we do more damage as we proc status on the enemy, and Maiming Strike, which basically guarantees us a critical on a slide attack, and it pushes it a little bit above 100%, which means every now and then you will see an orange crit, but it also allows the use of Berserker for a ton of attack speed. And that's very nice because the whip is somewhat slow. Then we have Drifting Contact for some combo duration and status chance, and I personally topped it off with a Virulent Scourge and a Volcanic Edge for some status and gas damage. But you can play around with different elemental combos, especially when it comes to the Grenier. Now as you can see, memeing around with this setup will trash the corpus pretty fast. And it will do the same thing with the majority of the infested as well, and that's all thanks to that high base damage, which means that the crit gas clouds will leave behind very nasty toxin procs. But it will struggle versus heavily armored, high level Grenier or corrupted units. As you can see with these heavy gunners over here, it will take considerably longer to take those down. And that's where you start playing around with different elemental combos, like with Viral over here, which is far more effective. But it's still not as good as something like the Atarax, which will absolutely shred these units to bits. Now you might also be tempted to put in Blood Rush, which will result in almost instant red crits, but the multiplier isn't going to be great, and if you put in Organ Chatter, you're probably going to lose Condition Overload, and if you don't have Condition Overload, you probably don't need dual stat mods, so you're probably going to replace them with normal elemental mods, and at that point you're not really using this setup anymore, and you're just brute forcing crit with Meme Strike. But you do have to bear in mind that I always do my simulacrum tests versus level 100 units, and you're not really going to run into those too terribly often. So unless you're really into doing long endless missions where you will run into very high level units, any weapon that can comfortably kill level 60, maybe 70 units is just fine for the vast majority of the game. Now I know some of you will dislike this specific setup because it's using Maiming Strike, and I'm right there with you. I really don't like Maiming Strike because I find the playstyle very cumbersome, because I always sort of believe that if you want to take advantage of Maiming Strike, which is a very easy way to multiply your damage by quite a bit, you should be doing the slide attacks manually, so I don't use a macro. And that means that the whole spin to win gameplay gets pretty tiring after about 30 minutes. But given how well Maiming Strike works with whips, because they have massive slide attack ranges, especially if you have primed reach, and how well the stats of the weapon work with Maiming Strike, you know, with it being pretty slow, and Maiming Strike allows you to use Berserker, so it doesn't matter, and the high base damage is good, even though it's only multiplied by 1.8 times through crit, plus the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of whip stances, because they do feel pretty restrictive, at least compared to the kind of stances we're getting nowadays. I just had to slap it on there. And it works just fine. It is a mighty fine whip, the Galvacord. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure whether I would actually go for this whip and do a proper build for it if I wasn't doing YouTube videos, because it sits somewhere in between the Atarax and the Lecta series of whips, and I think I would rather use either of those two than the Galvacord. I think they're both easier to get. I mean, for the Atarax, you just buy the blueprint of the market, you throw in a little bit of resources, and boom, you can just meme everything to death, regardless of level, faction, or unit type. And the Secura Lecta, you just max out the Syndicate or you buy it from someone else with Platinum, and you can focus your damage a lot more, and you get some extra credits on top of that. With the Galvacord, you have to go through the Solaris United reputation, and you have to get the rank of Old Maid, which is the final one, so that you can access the Heights bounties and farm the Atmo systems there. Also, I almost forgot, while this is Mastery rank 6, so you can get it pretty early, Atarax is Mastery rank 2. So if you really want to meme around all the time, you basically get the best weapon to do so with at Mastery Rank 2. You won't get all the mods you need until much later on, because I'm pretty sure you're not gonna get Meme Strike and Blood Rush and all that at Mastery Rank 2, but, you know, you can already get the weapon and get it ready. The only thing the Galvacord has going for it when compared to something like the Atarax is the higher base damage, which goes really well with the much higher Riven disposition when you compare it to something like the Atarax, where the Rivens you're gonna get are gonna be very tame because the disposition for the Atarax is very low. So you could, in theory, push the capabilities of this weapon beyond of what the Atarax can do if you get yourself a really well-rolled Riven, but recommending weapons based on that is kind of dumb. So when it comes to the Galvacord, I'm gonna go with a non-committal meh. I don't think it deserves a thumbs down, but I also don't think it's good enough when compared to the other whips we already have or can create via the Zol system to get a thumbs up either. It's just a well-rounded solid whip, but unfortunately it is nothing to write home about. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.